Welcome everybody to Practical Psychology Podcast, episode 42. My name is Joseph Wong. I'm one of the co-hosts. Today we are very happy to have Brittney Larsen, registered clinical counselor in beautiful Nelson, BC, joining us. Thank you, Brittney.
Thanks, Joseph, for having me.
So Brittney, we started about the episode last time, the transition into parenthood, which a lot of people don't talk about, the adjustment. Let's continue this time.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I had made a bunch of notes last time, and I think we barely got through one point. So that goes to show how huge this area is to consider.
Oh yeah, psychology is about benefiting, enriching lives with skills. Skills is available. People don't have to brainstorm, get stuck by themselves, trial and error. Follow the try and true method people done before. So Brittney, let's go through what is the first step here.
Yeah. So people have been having babies since the beginning of humanity. So why does it catch people so off guard? Because becoming a parent is genuinely different from every other big life change that you've been through. And I don't mean that to scare anybody. I mean it because it's a really important and I want it to be validating. So if we think about other big transitions in life, like moving out on your own for the first time or getting a new job or even getting married, those are huge, but they're also reversible. So if it's not working, you can course correct. But having a child is the one transition in adult life that's completely irreversible. It's for the rest of your life. And so research consistently describes it that way, as a sudden and profound and permanent shift. So that can be why it's a bit more challenging to sort of sort through as an individual. And it's not just about schedule changes. It's not just less sleep and more laundry, but both of those things are true. It's also a big identity change. So who you are, how you see yourself, your own sense of purpose, and your relationship with the other people that you love the most. All of that gets reshuffled.
Wow, Brittney here. And I want to focus on these two words here, irreversible and identity change. Because oftentimes in psychology, when people are making a decision, they're trying to imagine what would happen. They do a lot of planning about this imaginary. And of course, for a lot of people, because parenthood is new, going to space there, it's really hard to envision something that they haven't gone through in their lives before.
Yeah, and you can, pick other people's brains and learn as much as you can, but until you have your own unique child in front of you, there's no way really to prepare in some areas.
And so, Brittney, here, how would you say to people about there's some elements that you can not envision and that sort of uncertainty will always be there until you make the decision. That sort of thing, people try to plan for everything, cover all bases, 100% certainty, but in reality, there's no.
No, exactly. And so it's sort of like we talk about feeding schedules and sleep training or whether not to sleep train. And but we don't talk about that part where you sort of might look in the mirror at 3 o'clock in the morning and genuinely not recognize yourself at all. And I want to be clear that that's not a sign that something's wrong when you have that experience. It's actually what's supposed to happen. Yeah, so there's actually a word for it now. So for mothers, it's called matrescence, sort of the process of becoming a mother. It was actually coined in the 1970s, but it's sort of been embraced more and more by researchers and therapists because it captures something that's really important, that's really hard to name. Becoming a mother is its own developmental phase, kind of like adolescence or early childhood stages. For fathers and other non-birthing partners, there's an equivalent term. It's called patrescence, sort of that emotional and psychological journey of becoming a father or parent. And it doesn't get nearly as much attention, but that research is also clear that dads go through a profound identity shift as well. So it doesn't have to be just the mom, and many of them navigate it completely alone because people are more inclined to ask the mom or the birthing parent.
Oh yeah. So Brittney, the first thing here is people understand compared to many other decisions and changes, it is a irreversible change,
Yeah.
a irreversible course of actions, and also an identity change.
Yeah, because it's irreversible. So, of course, your identity has to adapt because there's no going back from that. It's a permanent part of your identity now.
So Brittney, how about for people who make this change and then the regret?
Yeah, so that can be a really challenging thing to even name the experience within the person. Because it's genuinely challenging to become a parent, even if you're the most prepared and you love babies. And there's just such a huge shift in identity. There might be things like feeling overwhelmed, and then you worry that you don't feel grateful enough, or because even you see people who aren't able to have babies, or you yourself had an experience of it was really hard to have your child, and then the overwhelm kind of makes you feel guilty for feeling overwhelmed, or like grieving parts of your old life. Doesn't mean that you don't love your baby, but it's a big change. So grief is a part of that whole process. And there's so much guilt in sort of holding all these feelings at the same time. And sort of what that experience looks like for most people. So it's hard too, because nobody told you that it can make you feel all of these things or like something's gone wrong, but it hasn't. It's a big adjustment.
Oh yeah, and Brittney, it is also a big topic that is a taboo subject. For example, a lot of parents, they will say they absolutely love their child, but they also have the regret if they were to go back, they would do something differently. It's a big
Yeah,
topic.
exactly. Because in the moment, you're doing the best you can, even, and that extends to choosing to have a child. You there's sort of a common saying that like the best parents are people who haven't had children yet or are about to have children. Because the reality hasn't sunk in, and it's so dependent on each individual child as well, and each parent. I mean, people have different sensory needs, so constantly being touched is so overwhelming for a lot of people, or all the sounds or the lack of sleep. There's so many factors that can lead into like those feelings of regret, or like, what have I done, even if you completely love your child, which I would say parents tend to do.
Yeah. And Brittney here, for the sake of our today's conversation, let's continue. What is the second thing you wish to other people will ask sort of this question, planning about the parenthood?
Yeah, so one of the things that can happen is sort of between partners. So, because we're talking about the transition into parenthood, I thought it might be helpful to talk about sort of what the research shows for couples, because this is a common experience where both people feel overwhelmed and they don't really know what to do, and there's not a lot of communication happening, or people are tired, and we sort of think that if we love each other enough, everything will be fine, but it's not necessarily the case. And people are also really curious about, but also really nervous about, is sort of the couple relationship after having a baby.
Oh, I love it. This because Brittney, you talk about the couples, each of them are changing their identity, their new role here, and love is not enough.
Yeah, we want it to be, but there's so many things that make that love sustainable. Yeah, so first I thought I'd be super upfront, because I think being honest about what the research shows is more helpful than sort of being reassuring. So the data on couples across this transition is pretty consistent, and it's not entirely like cheerful to hear about. So studies find that relationship satisfaction tends to decline after the birth of your first child.
Okay.
So for mothers, that's nearly 80% of first-time
Okay.
mothers experience at
Yeah.
least a moderate decrease in how happy they feel in their relationship. And for fathers and non-birthing parents, it's around 51%
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
have that decrease. And about 1 in 3 couples will fall into what researchers call relationship distress within the first 18 months after having a baby.
Wow. So Brittney, here, these three are very important data here. 80%
Mhm.
of the female will have a drop in the relationship quality. 51% is men. And then 1 in 3 couples for the 18 months will experience relationship distress.
Yeah. And a significant amount of those, which I'm forgetting the exact statistic, will not make it through those first 18 months.
Okay, and significant number. So are you
Yeah.
mentioning about they might go through separations or other thing?
Yeah, sort of that realization or
Okay.
feeling as though the relationship isn't sustainable now after having
Okay.
a child.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. And we are very thankful for this research data because research is objective, Brittany. So in a way, it's quite fascinating or impressive and scary at the same time. Is on
Yeah.
one hand, introducing a baby is other people are like congratulating, but on the other hand, here it's almost like you'll be encountering bankruptcy
Yeah.
sort of thing, right? Hey, a bus is coming to run you over, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And so it's that like, and because we have these statistics, it can seem pretty scary. So people choose not to look directly at it. It's sort of like seeing that car coming and like, I just pretend it's not about to hit us. Um, and it doesn't happen to everyone and it's not inevitable, but it sometimes feels that way when you hear the research.
And because 1/3 of the people is getting run over by the bus, so it'll be hard for, oh, I'm the 30% that not.
Yeah, exactly. We all want to be in that 30%, but um, and so the same research though shows that this in that decline also shows us exactly what can prevent it too. So
Ah,
it's not like a life sentence. It's sort of
yeah.
like the weather forecast, something that you can prepare for.
Okay, okay. Tell us about this. I'm interested to know how to prevent or engage or at least cope with that.
Yeah, so a few things are happening all at once when a baby comes. There's more conflict and less fun together. There's also less sleep, less time alone, less time with your partner without someone else there. And there's this whole new source of disagreement that did not exist before. Um, and like we were saying before, we don't totally know how we're going to be as a parent until it's happening. And a lot of that is influenced by how we were raised, whether we
Mm.
are choosing the same things or trying to do differently than our upbringing. All of these things come into play and can create a lot of disagreements.
Oh, wow. So objectively speaking, reduce in sleep, alone time, and an increase in disagreement and many other things.
Yes. And so one of the biggest drivers of those disagreements, and also one of the most fixable, if both people are on board, is the
Okay.
division of labor.
Division of labor. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about what type of labor we are talking about here?
So a lot of this, so in almost every country where this has been studied, which is in a lot of countries around the world, so it's universal. When a baby arrives, the workload increases significantly, of course, um,
Yeah.
but it increases unevenly. So
Okay.
mothers consistently take on substantially more of the childcare and household work, particularly what's now called the mental load, where like the planning and the noticing and the um,
Okay.
sort of being the manager of the household.
Okay.
Um, even in couples where both partners are working full time before the baby. So this is where a lot of it comes in, is that there was a time where mothers were staying at home more. And so this division of labor made sense because the person was at home. It was still uneven at the time, but they didn't need two incomes to survive. But what we're seeing now is that both people are working full or nearly full time, but the mothers are still having to take on the burdens of managing a household and managing kids and arranging for childcare and all of these things, which we briefly touched on last time. Even just like trying to find childcare, that alone is exhausting, especially in an age where there's not enough available.
Wow, there's a number of things here. Brittney, let me summarize here. You mentioned about the objective workload will increase. And then in terms of the division labor, there's also more uneven distribution of labor. Objectively, physically, about the planning, noticing, and also because times have changed too, because income, finances, times are hard. The mental perception, the mental part. So both the objective and the mental part, the uneven and unfair distribution.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and it usually lands on the mothers, but it can be the other way around where it lands on one partner.
Okay. So it means if we just follow the flow, we'll get run over by the bus maybe 2 times.
Yes, exactly. Because it's sort of you have this whole identity shift. You're learning a new way of existing, taking care of another being and keeping them alive. And then also your relationship, you might start to feel resentful if you sort of get to that point where you're treading water and there's not enough time in the day, there's not enough energy to do all the things that need doing. Sort of like childcare and household work and all of those things.
And Brittney, let's talk about some of the strategies, because for this division of labor here, if people are not aware of that, basically they will be run over by the bus daily. Today, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. But I guess the good news is in psychology, we can do something about it objectively and mentally.
Exactly, because there's this really important nuance from the research. So it's not just the imbalance itself that damages the relationship, it's the feeling that the imbalance is unfair. So the couples who walk into parenthood having talked about who does what and who feel that their arrangement is sort of equitable and even if it isn't perfectly equal, because that will never happen. Life ebbs and flows, but they tend to sort of weather this period of time much better than couples who assume it'll just work out for itself. So sort of having that plan before you ever have kids, before you're sleep deprived, before you are just totally maxed out and resentment has grown.
Okay, so having a plan rather than following the flow. And you also mentioned about uneven, and then also the perception of fair and unfair is 2 different things. It can be uneven, but the perception is more important.
Yes, exactly. So in couples where the sort of mental load and that type of work is valued by the partner, there's less resentment that grows.
Okay, yes, okay, yeah. So how do people engage in these perceptions here? Because life is rarely 50-50.
Yeah, and it will ebb and flow over time. You'll have times where it's, 90-10, and then you'll have times when it's 60-40, and it just shifts depending on the life stage and the demands for your family at that time.
Yeah, I see, okay.
So earlier having these conversations is always better, because the earlier you have it, the less resentment has grown. So not because you'll have everything figured out, you won't, but because you're sort of negotiating from a place of sleep and calm and goodwill rather than exhaustion and resentment, like I mentioned before. So yeah, but the good news is that we know a lot about this, and the couples who do well tend to share a few things in common. So creating a stronger relationship foundation before the baby arrives can be really important. Life happens, and sometimes that's not always possible. Like if you end up having a baby earlier in a relationship than maybe you had intended, because sometimes life gives us these surprises. So, but taking that time even during pregnancy to develop that stronger relationship foundation can be really helpful. Kind of ironing out the things that tend to be challenges, because no matter who you're in a relationship with, you're going to have arguments. And the research shows we have the same arguments with people, like it's the same argument, and 70% of them are not solvable. So it's learning how to ride through them, because two individuals means two perspectives and two like different ways of functioning.
So I have a question here, Brittney.
Yeah.
You mentioned about one of the strategies is building a stronger foundation before to prepare for parenthood, and one of them is really building that conversation rather than not conversation.
Yes. Yeah. So sort of another thing that these couples who do well have in common is that they had open and warm communication styles. Not
open and warm.
Yeah, not perfect communication, but sort of the kind where both people feel heard, or at least like the person is trying to understand your perspective instead of trying to get you to understand their perspective.
Open, warm, and feel understood.
Yeah. And even just the effort to be understood, even if understanding doesn't come, but the effort to be understood from the other partner.
Open, warm, seek to understand, and then no need to be perfect.
Yes, which we all can get really caught in, whether it's for ourselves, wanting ourselves to be the perfect partner or perfect parent, or whether it's we have these high expectations for our partner that are not achievable.
Well,
Because
Brittney,
no one can be perfect.
you can make a poster or those magnets, and I'll buy one from you too, stick it on the fridge. Open, warm, seek to understand, and no need to be perfect.
No need to be perfect. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so,
Brittney,
oh yeah, you go.
you also mentioned about one of the conversation is a lot of the arguments is not solvable.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
couples tend to argue about the same thing even though it's not solvable.
Yes, exactly. So living with another person, whether it's your roommate or whether it's your partner, comes with innate challenges. Someone doesn't load the dishwasher correctly is a very common experience. But both people think they're doing it correctly.
I can tell
So
you it
kind of,
happened to me, okay? Yeah.
yeah, me too.
On a weekly basis.
Yeah. And so instead of being like, my partner doesn't know what they're doing, and like, just I acknowledge that I need it done a certain way. And so I can fix it or choose not to fix it. And sort of knowing that there's no ill intent. Or hopefully there's no ill intent. There might be in some cases, but for the most part, people aren't purposely trying to upset you by loading the dishwasher wrong. And so one of the big things is sort of knowing that a lot of these arguments will continue to happen even in a different package. And it's just part of existing with another human being. You can't have a partnership where nobody argues. I mean, I guess it does happen, but it's pretty rare. And usually it's just because they're choosing not to talk about it, not because those arguments aren't there under the surface. So one of the things that's really important in the research is that like people have each other's backs. So people call that dyadic coping. That's sort of what the research calls it, which just means that when one person is struggling, the other responds with support rather than defensiveness.
Okay, like a teamwork, think about the team.
Yeah, you see that someone is struggling, and instead of kind of getting defensive about it, you help and support,
Mm.
which
Wow.
sounds simple enough, but can be really
Okay.
challenging.
The teamwork here, help out each other versus being defensive.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
because the Gottmans talk about the four horsemen of sort of that will end a relationship. One is defensiveness, and there's also oh no, now I'm going to have to do that thing where I think on the spot. There's contempt is another one,
Ah,
criticism instead of complaints, and also I'm forgetting the fourth one.
the stonewalling.
Stonewalling, thank you.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to be conscious of those. I won't go into them today, but maybe we can talk about those at a later time. But
Yeah.
they're worth looking into just to kind of be aware of. There's lots of information out there from the Gottman's research. Um, and
And even
also,
for here, Brittany,
yeah,
um, you already mentioned two very concrete things here. The conversation no need to be perfect, open, warm, seek to understand, to make the other person feel understood. Number two is pay attention to some of the items that is not solvable.
yeah,
Rather than arguing
even
about the dishwashers over and over again.
yeah, noticing like, oh, this is a pattern that we have. And
Yeah.
how can we sort of ride those uncomfortable waves instead of trying to solve it repeatedly with no way to solve it?
Yeah, prioritize the problem solving to something solvable rather than focusing on time on something which is not solvable. Yeah.
Yeah. And learning to sort of sit in that discomfort together.
Wow, that would be a good worksheet for any couple to do because naturally some disagreement will never be resolved. And
Yeah,
and they actually don't have to break up resolve because we can respect differences and values
exactly.
and
And
diversity.
exactly because you're not marrying a or you're not having a child with a clone of yourself,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
that
In
would
fact,
come with
people
its
don't
own
like themselves
problems.
sometimes when they look into the mirror. Anyways,
Yeah, exactly. That would be
exactly.
problems on its
Yeah.
own. Yeah. And so, and another thing that these couples who tended to did well together is they protected time together. And it's not like
Okay.
grand romantic gestures or like even needing to go on dates because sometimes that's not possible depending if you have people who live nearby who can help you out or a trusted babysitter or any of those kind of things. These can just be consistent small rituals of connection, like a cup of coffee together before the chaos starts for the day, or a check in at the end of the day to make sure that your connection as a couple remains.
Wow.
Because it's really easy to start dividing and conquering and losing the connection that you have with your partner.
Yeah, because the teams that separate to do their own thing, they never gather. So
Yeah.
that routine is so important to build that routine before and during and after.
Exactly. And it can be even more challenging nowadays because we have people in constant communication with us. We have so many distractions that it can be
Oh
even
yeah.
easier to not put in that time because we're being pulled in so many directions, even just having our phones.
Oh, wow, I see. Okay, yeah. So,
Mhm.
Brittany, we get a lot of good stuff here, very concrete about the teamwork versus defensiveness, protecting the time, this routine for conversation, and yeah, resolvable and not resolvable arguments, planning, and all that here. So let's end
Mhm.
it here today, and we'll continue about the series next time.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. There's a lot to get into.
And Brittany, before we end here today, what is a few things you want to say to the viewers or anybody, the takeaway for them?
If you're already well into your journey of parenthood and you didn't know any of this information, it is never too late. We can always adapt and kind of go back and kind of rediscover what that phase of our life was like and have conversations with your partner about it. And it's never too late to do that repair work. Even if you're not together and you're just co-parenting, you can always do that repair work.
I love this here, Brittney, because we all have been getting run over by the bus, but we can prevent it happening tomorrow.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly, yeah, Brittney. Okay, thank you so much, Brittney, and I'll see you next time, okay?
Great. Thank you, Joseph.